Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey.
It is a story of the factions this week, so just kind of run down, I guess the big factions and their statuses. Starting off, SmackDown, LWO. Bobby Lashley had a match where he defeated Carlito, and really it's the aftermath, I think, that we should be talking about here. Santos Escobar turning on Carlito, turning on Rey Mysterio, and sort of putting that final wedge into the LWO that we knew was coming.
Yeah, this was what we expected for a while. Escobar finally, snapping. And that leaves his buddies, Wild and the other one, in a very interesting spot, because they were always paired with him with being in Legado del Fantasma, and then they joined the LWO, and now they have to decide, do they continue to be a buddy with him, or do they follow Rey?
Yeah, because we saw Zelina Vega, who came up with them as well, seemingly taking the side of Rey. And so I assume the way it's working is that Rey and Carlito are keeping the LWO stable, and then it is just down to everybody else to see what side of the Civil War they fall on. And at the moment, the only one that's drawn the battle line is Santos, as you say. The tag team were there trying to help Rey and free him, but there's nothing saying a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now that they're not going to pick a different side, or they're not going to come on out on the side of Santos and team up with him, because he is pretty running solo right now, at least. Unless he teams up with the man who took the United States title off of Rey in the first place. Pretty good ally to start with.
Yep.
I've already heard people talking about how the combination of Rey Mysterio, Carlito, Bad Bunny, Santos Escobar, Logan Paul, Dominic Mysterio. People already running around fantasy booking what sort of combination of these men we're going to end up getting in a big match. WrestleMania Rumble coming on up.
And it gives Carlito something to do that a little bit different than what he's been doing, and it's just his style will fit more with Escobar feuding with him for the time being, because it does appear like Mysterio might have had an injury, and that may have been another thing that they had to do. But I think it'll fit better with Escobar than it certainly did with Lashley, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think, as you say, the headline from here on out will probably be Santos versus Carlito. Rey sort of fade off for a little bit, and really get Santos get that heat. And yeah, what side of the coin Joaquin Wilde and man who both of us is forgetting, very sorry, end up falling on. But also, in terms of falling on a side of the coin, Damage CTRL picking up their member formally, in Kairi Sane in the middle of the night. And then later on, picking up Asuka to be a fifth woman.
Yep, which is giving us our 5 women for the women's War Games Survivor Series match, depending on which way they want to go with it.
Yeah.
Which then brings you the question of who will be the fifth for Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard Becky. It doesn't make a lot of sense from the standpoint they're on different shows, but the thing I would want to see if they want to go with Becky for sure, and I suspect that will be it, is that they will have Bianca trying to get people to join her for the next week and a half, but nobody wants to join her because they're jealous of her. I mean, she has been the top of the division for the last 3 years, or they just don't like her. B, they just can't stand Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
Which most people can't, and most people are jealous also of her success. So, and then she finally gets a call from the one person that can that still respects her and can deal with Charlotte Flair, and that be Becky. Maybe they don't reveal it until the actual match.
Because if we run down, I guess, the females on the SmackDown roster, I don't see Alba Fire taking that spot. Asuka obviously on the heels, B-Fab floating around, not doing a lot. Already on a team. Isla Dawn, again, same with Alba Fire. Don't really see them taking that spot. Mia Yim, a little bit, I guess, like, not a big name for a spot like that. Scarlett doing more managing than anything else. Zelina Vega tied up with LWO. Shotzi pretty much already aligned herself with the faces, and no one really knows what Tamina's doing, but I don't see her being the 6th either. Or the 5th, sorry.
Yes, so I think it will be this Becky. It's just, I'd like them to give a storyline reason for it, and slowly build to it. And like having Bianca talking to other people, trying to recruit them, but being turned down time after time after time. And then maybe the very end segment of the SmackDown next week, she gets a phone call. You don't know who it's calling, but you can tell from her voice or what it's said that it's somebody who wants to work with her, who wants to be on the team.
Yeah. Does have Bianca say something like, see her on Sunday, or see you on Saturday, or whichever day this pay-per-view is airing. And that would lock it in. And yeah, I think that's some good television. Even if it is a potentially obvious reveal in Becky, it will still generate hype. People will still cheer when Becky is announced. And it'll still do its job for sure. Speaking of... No, I'm not... Oh, no. Speaking of factions finding new friends, that was me trying to figure out how to do this segue. The Judgment Day over on Raw have found themselves a pretty powerful Scotsman to take their side.
Yeah, what we've expected for a while finally happened. Yeah, Drew McIntyre has seemingly at least aligned himself with Judgment Day. Maybe not joined, but aligned himself. But I will say this. The image of him standing next to Rhea, that, if there was a Dom already in play, that would be a power couple. And that would be a couple that I could see with all the gold.
Yeah.
Dominic makes things weird in that sense, but I would be fine with them maybe bringing Drew in, being part of, maybe being the official leader of the group. Because I have a feeling if that happens, Damian Priest is getting kicked out.
Well, we already had the segment, right, where Cody asked who the leader was, and there was already massive tension just in asking such a simple question. And they're not ready for it.
Everybody knows the leader is Rhea Ripley. Let's be honest. But on the men's side, there is no leader. But Drew is the one guy that could be credible enough to be the leader.
Yeah.
I mean, Finn's de facto, kind of. But outside of NXT and one day as Universal Champion, what has he done as a singles person?
Yeah. Priest thinks it might be him. I don't think that's correct. I think you might have some pushback on that one.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Rhea Ripley's world. They're just living in it. And I think that's part of why I brought up the image of Rhea and Drew, because they look like they would be the top dogs, and Drew is a 2-time WWE champion, so
it's hard to go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, because right now it does seem a little bit like, an alliance of convenience. He's ready for his heel turn. We've been saying that for a little while. Comes on out. He just took a loss against Seth. Sort of plays pretty well in that way. Is he gonna...
Drew hates Sami Zayn, so that works out too.
There's a lot of cohesion in terms of the reasons for him to do it.
Yeah, he hates Sami Zayn, he hates Jey Uso. I think the only person he doesn't technically have a beef with is Cody, honestly.
Book it. That's the next feud after this.
But Cody's defending both the people that I just mentioned, so got a death by association.
Yeah. And so, yeah, will it be more than an alliance? Will it be a formal joining of the group? I'm sure that'll unfold. We do still have the leadership debate. We do still have Finn bringing in JD, seemingly being accepted now across the board. We still have the briefcase floating around. There's so many combustible elements. They're really playing with matches in a firework factory here with the Judgment Day. And maybe Drew McIntyre is the powder keg.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways they can go from here. It could eventually end up being, like, at WrestleMania, it could be Drew versus Finn.
Yeah.
In some weird way of getting there. But as we love to say, we'll have to wait and see.
And we will wait and see what happens on the other side of the entrance theme of the week, because it is time to go into that one, and it is none other than Drew McIntyre's theme, but specifically Broken Dreams, one of the best wrestling themes of all time. What's that match on my head? And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. Sort of taken a step away from the factions. We had quite a lot happening in them. And instead taking a step over to... No, you know what? We'll stay in the faction world. NXT Tag Team Championships. They were on the line. Chase U won them, I think about a week ago, Halloween Havoc. And their reign was short-lived.
Yeah. This is interesting. Obviously, we love Chase U. We love them being the champions. And so, seeing them be not champions so quickly is a disheartening. But that's just like a small picture in the overall frame that is the storyline. Which I think makes it okay, because they seem to be doing something with Chase U that's basically mirroring something that's happening in sports right now. And I just want to see how this all works over, because Andre Chase, throughout his entire time in WWE, in NXT, feeds off the Chase U fan base. Mm-hmm. Everything he does builds from that, and he's not getting their support. Will this cause him to embrace the evil that is Chase Jane and the corruption from that area?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because if you look at the Chase U gimmick or the Chase U storyline, it all started with Andre. He came out, he's got his little section in the crowd. He accepts Thea in, he accepts Duke in, they get extremely over, but they're still not really winning anything. And then the only time they win the NXT Tag Team Championships is because JC Jane has come in, she uses her evil influence. Duke and Thea both seem okay with doing it. Thea is 100% getting corrupted. Rematch comes along, he refuses to let her interfere. They lose. The crowd section is walking out. There's empty seats behind them. It's very much, as you say, there's two ways for this to go. Either Andre's going to be embracing the dark side here, and we're going to see a brand new version of this Chase U stable, or we're going to just end up seeing Andre sort of calling it quits with his rest of his crew, and leaving Thea, JC, and Duke without a university to go to.
Yep. There's definitely ways that they can go about it. But yeah, I think it's just the case of maybe the next evolution of the group. But the question is what role will Andre Chase have in his own group?
Yeah, because there's a chance that he just doesn't really do a whole lot in it, you know? He fades off. He does something else. I don't really know much about Andre pre-NXT. I don't know, if this is the time for him to completely rebuild and to try a different character. I think Chase U is still working, and with this change coming up into a more evil-aligned faction, I think he could work quite well, especially if it is something that it takes him a few weeks to accept. I think that's a little bit better than him just showing up next week all of a sudden being evil. I think it is going to take a little bit of time, and, as you say, the influence of the crowd walking out on him, the influence of those around him. I think eventually he'll succumb. And yeah, he'll sort of take that role that Schism might have left open when the Grizzled Young Vets pulled off, where there's just this group of some baddies running around NXT.
Yeah, I think it's not going to be something we'll see for the next couple weeks. And honestly, I seriously think that they may mirror what they've done with the Big Ten did with Michigan, and suspend Andre Chase for like 3 weeks, and that could lead to maybe him when he comes back. The rest of Chase U is definitely walking down a much darker path, and he has to decide: is he closing Chase U permanently, or what is his plan? What is he going to do?
Yeah, and I think that's the big question around all of that. Where does Andre Chase fall? Will we be calling it Chase U? I think that's a small little footnote. Teams are kind of factions. They have a name, the Trick Mellow Gang. Okay, we got our Iron Survivor match coming up at NXT Deadline later in the year to determine number one contenders for the 2 titles on NXT. And Trick Williams managed to grab his spot this week after defeating Joe Coffey, Gallus in Coffey's corner, and Carmelo Hayes up in Trick Williams' corner.
Yeah, you could see there's still some uneasiness. Trick is trying to trust Mello, but Mello is definitely not trying to help him. That's for sure. I don't know. It's one of those situations where it's like we can see the eventual end game.
Yeah.
It's just how are we getting there, and they're advancing the story. It didn't hurt the match, to be honest. But it's just another flow in the overarching story. Trick has seemingly, at least for now, forgiven, or at least believes, that Mella had nothing to do with it.
Which is a crazy belief.
Yeah. While Mella is definitely giving off these vibes that he
did
maybe
something.
resents Trick going off on his own, because now it's not all about Mello. But there's somebody who's just as athletic as he is, trying to go for the title he wants to have.
Yeah, as you say, Trick Williams versus Carmelo Hayes is the definite finale of this. How fast do we get there? When do we get there? Well, obviously, December 9th, the NXT Deadline, that's got to pass first. Maybe that's where the spark is lit. I fully reckon, I don't know if we can drag it out to their WrestleMania special. That's still 4 or 5 months away. But I think Trick and Carmelo deserve a like big pay-per-view spot. Like they shouldn't have their blow off on just a regular old NXT. I reckon those two can pull this off and move forward as one of the big feuds for the next couple months. What do we love most about wrestling? Big E conditioned us to love it, and it is none other than big meaty men slapping meat, and Ivar versus Bronson Reed is 2 pretty big men, and I'm pretty sure they're ready to slap meat. And yeah. Miz is number one contender, but that's less cool.
Yeah. It'll be interesting seeing how that plays out with them. It is just like a footnote that They have been doing stuff with Ivar. So, that's good. It is sad that it had to be a result of an injury that could result in somebody's career ending.
Yeah, it is a little sad that, it's two guys who are perennially tag teamed together, not to the level of the Usos, but the Viking Raiders were best friends, outside of the game, in the game, all over the place, and it showed amazing gimmick, and the only upside, as you say, is that Ivar is getting to do something.
Yeah, it makes total sense that The Miz would win this match. He just won a number one contenders match for arguably the most important title that's defended regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I will not say the most important title in the company because that's not true. But
just because Roman never defends it.
But the Intercontinental Championship match between Gunther and Miz is going to be phenomenal. But yeah, and you know what? I do want to see Bronson Reed and Ivar in a Viking Rules match just kill each other.
Yeah, I reckon this one will stretch out a little bit. Will we see it at Survivor Series? I don't know. It kind of just comes down to the amount of matches we got booked, potentially. I'd say bump it to the pre-show, but nowadays we're not having a whole lot of pre-show matches. Maybe the Raw after for these two. But they're on a collision course, and I'm quite happy to see that they're on a collision course. Should be a fun one, for sure. You mentioned Walter, one of the best Intercontinental Champions of the last decade. His little faction, Imperium, picking up a win this week. Ludwig Kaiser going one-on-one against Tommaso Ciampa, setting up this Imperium versus DIY feud, or continuing this feud, should I say.
I don't really know what to think about this. It was a fine match. It's just the crowd wasn't into it.
I think, unfortunately, that describes a lot of the work DIY has done on the main roster.
It describes the second hour of Raw. Everything got killed by the crowd. And a lot of it has to do with it being all newer faces, so to speak, in that time frame, that WWE just hasn't told anybody what they are, what their story is. Why are they out there? Why should I cheer you? Why should I boo you?
Yeah, right. You're coming down, you got Tegan Nox, Piper Niven going one-on-one, you got Ludwig Kaiser taking on Tommaso Ciampa of DIY, Xia Li, Indy Hartwell haven't had major momentum or storylines. Miz and Ivar, probably a bit of an exception to the rule. It sort of picks up towards the end with the Judgment Day match as well, but that whole middle chunk is, I guess, NXT stars that have come up recently and don't, like, the Imperium are just Gunther's goons, really. DIY on the main roster are not to the level that they were on NXT. Tegan Nox done very little. Piper Niven's been all over the place. Xia Li has done very little, and Indy Hartwell might have done the least of all of them.
Yeah. All right. Here's how they could have maybe fixed that complaint. Do a bunch of video promos of the stuff they did in NXT.
Yeah.
Tell the casual people who DIY is, why it's important that they are in the spot they are. Also, something you could have done for Xia Li is the promo they did on NXT involving Roxanne Perez. Do it with Becky.
Yeah.
Instead of the whole coming out and kicking somebody's teeth in and then running away when Becky comes out. Do that promo, that video package, with developing the character of Xia Li through that promo. Because that was an amazing promo package on NXT. And you have some reason for fans to like or dislike Xia Li. You get to know the character. Right now, there's no reason anybody should expect Xia Li to win next week on Raw.
I don't.
But if you gave her a story, like you did with her on NXT, that gives you a reason to care about Xia Li. whether or not you believe she would still win, even with that story, is regardless, you would be invested in that character. And that would go greatly towards where she goes from there.
Yeah. Well,
but sadly, they just did a generic, here's somebody who we have seen maybe once in the last 6 months. And I'm not sure that's an exaggeration.
I don't think it is.
Suddenly just kicking somebody's teeth in, and then when the man shows up, she runs away.
That's pretty much all we saw. And we'll have to wait and see what happens when the man goes one-on-one with Xia Li next week. We're pretty sure we know what'll happen, but we don't know, because that is all we've got time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye, B.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D up, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling R&D up, and we will catch you next week.